Hello, everyone. I am Julianne Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness, and I'm excited for today's guest. I'm always excited, but today is going to be fun because we're going to be learning about something absolutely amazing. You guys are in for a treat. And, you know, it's something different. It's not our normal topic, which, well, actually has something to do with money. So that is kind of a normal topic for us. But let me just introduce our amazing guest, Cynthia Spirlin. Welcome to the show. So glad to have you here today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here today. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while, and I feel like it's been forever since we last spoke. I mean, in depth, I should say. But, you know, I was so drawn to you for so many different reasons. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, I'm a real estate investor. It's been my passion since as far back as I can remember. My parents really introduced me to the idea. I'm from Los Angeles, and they married and brought their traditional values to the West Coast from Texas and Louisiana. And my parents were self-employed, and so they really gave me a good work ethic. I have one brother, and so it's a family of four, and I kind of grew up in the family business. And we worked really hard in the business to make it grow. And it was successful after some time. But what really changed our lives was real estate. And so that's where I got the bug for it as a teenager. I would help my parents with the property and listen to them talk about how they were renting it out and the tenants and the different issues that come up with owning and leasing property. But it still seemed intriguing. And it was a solid foundation that held our family together financially for many years. So to me, I'm just passionate about real estate, and I like to share that with everyone I meet.
And I love that. And I don't know if you know this, but I was a real estate agent in New York City for quite some time. Yeah, I did residential and then I did commercial, which was a totally different animal. But so yeah, I love this idea of creating income, not only for ourselves, but also I love homes, and I love when I can just help anybody no matter what part of the process it is. So part of the reason why I was excited to talk to you today, because you do something that's really interesting that I'd never heard of before. And it doesn't seem like, and I came from real estate, so I'd never even thought about it or heard about it per se. So I really wanted to bring you on today to show people, you know, possibility.
Right. What's possible. You know, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about what you do in particular, because I want to just jump right in.
Well, like I said, I listened to my parents talk about the problems with tenants and toilets and termites and all that kind of stuff. So I thought, well, that sounds interesting, but I don't want to do that, but I know I want to do real estate. And what intrigued me was the profit margins that were available on distressed property. So initially, I was drawn to property that was in foreclosure with the bank. So working with homeowners to solve the problem, to avoid foreclosure, we would buy the house and sell it at a profit after some minor cosmetic repairs. But then we had the crash in 2008, 2009, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is crazy. The banks they don't have it together, I thought. So how could I, trust them again to go through another cycle? Because my dad said, well, that's what happened. It's up and down. So now we're at a downtime. I said, I don't want to go through this again. And this was about 2012. We were starting to come out of it a little bit. I said, what else can I invest in that is a little safer than mortgage properties? And my research led me to tax liens and tax deeds. They're even a much, much more lucrative opportunity and a very safe investment because it's by the state or the county. So it's a government law that allows for, people, when they fail to pay their taxes after a period of time, the county, the government needs the money to run different parts of the county. So they put these properties on an auction list, and the person still has a final chance to get it off of the list. But they still fail to do that, it remains on the list and it can go to auction. And these properties are not listed for their actual market value. They're listed for only the unpaid taxes. So it could be $1,000, it could be $40,000. It depends on where you are in the country. But it's incredible what with a small investment, anyone can invest in tax liens and tax deeds, and it's safe. It's the government is the one that says, in a tax lien situation, the taxes, when you investor covers that unpaid bill, they receive a certain interest, and it's very high. So it's great for people that are wanting to build their savings. 16% interest, for example, in Arizona. Mm-hmm. So, in one case, you have a tax lien for $400, and so the interest on that would be 16%. When the person pays it, it's called a redemption. They have a period of time that they can redeem this tax lien certificate, and you don't have to worry. It's very passive because they pay the county, and then the county gives you your money back and the interest. If they don't, you get the property. So, for example, $400 tax lien that did not redeem, they did not pay the money or the interest within a period of time. So now you take it to a foreclosure process and the property's yours and you can sell it. That property was worth $15,000. So you turn $400 into $15,000.
That's amazing. I had no idea that you could even invest such small amounts. So I'm guessing that you don't necessarily have to buy in the state that you live in.
Correct. And that's the key thing, because a lot of hedge funds use tax liens, and it's known to the very wealthy. Even banks invest in tax liens and tax deeds because it's so lucrative. But it's also very competitive in major cities like Los Angeles, Las Vegas, San Francisco. Like, for example, there was a tax deed. California is a tax deed state. So when you participate in the auction of a property on that list, you actually get the deed. It was $1 million condo, and the starting bid was $40,000. So a large organization with deep pockets could come to that, and they couldn't buy that or win the bid at $250,000, for example. So that's not something the average person can do. So if you go outside of the area to Arizona, you invest in raw land, which is, very much in demand now. People building and relocating to Florida and different places in the Southeast. It's a great opportunity. Texas has great investment. It's Florida, Georgia, Texas, South Carolina. Those are great investment for tax liens and tax deeds.
That's interesting. So is there a way to lose what you invest?
It's possible. So the key thing is like, okay, sure, you're telling me that I can get this property for worth $15,000 and I'm only risking 400. So in the beginning, you want to invest small amounts so that you can learn. And that's how you really learn, because every auction is different, every property is different. And so you want to practice by buying these $100, $500 properties. But the risk is that it's not a good value. So on a lot of times on these type of properties, you don't get to walk the property. You're not able to get an inspection. There's a lot of unknowns. And so that's where the risk is involved. So you want to always only invest a percentage of the potential value of the property. So the rule of thumb I always go by is no more than 25% invest of the actual value. So if it was $100,000 value, you wouldn't want to invest more than $25,000. And initially, to get control, like buying the lien itself, maybe $10,000. Mm-hmm. So you have room for unexpected things, like it might need a new roof or something. On the other hand, if you have a property that is, like for example, fire damage, maybe that's why the person has abandoned the home and has not paid the taxes. So, but you could still sell that. So you buy it for, say, $1,000, and it could be in its total repair after, repair value would be $80,000, for example. Well, you could sell it still for $25,000, $30,000 as is to a contractor that can take the property back and restore it to its full value. So you invested $1,000 and you sell it as is for, say, 25, then you made a profit of 24,000. That's incredible. So there's ways to say, okay, well, if it's in bad condition, I can still sell it for 5,000, 15, 25. It's up, do you want to let go of that $1,000 for just say 12 months while you sell it to a contractor for the best price as is? Or do you want to fix it up yourself? Maybe you are a contractor, so you can buy it for $1,000 and, take it with repairs. You put in another 20,000 in repairs, potentially, cost of goods and supplies, and you sell it for 80,000. Whoa.
Something that I find the most attractive about what you're teaching us about today is this idea of no tenants.
Right.
I used to own a place in Vancouver, Canada, and I decided I was going to move back to the States, and everybody said, "Why are you selling? Why don't you rent it out?" And I said, "Are you insane? First of all, I'm going to be in another country, and I don't really like the idea of somebody living in my home. I can give up the home, and, but I don't want somebody else living in my home." So, but my parents had rental properties, and half the time, oh my goodness, they just, that was some issues. They had bad tenants.
Oh yes. There's so many stories when you have a property, like in our family property, rental property, for 40 years. There's so many stories. And at first people always show up, with their best face, and then something happens and it's like, oh man, I had such high hopes for these people. So you learn over the years, but that's why I love this, is that you don't have to deal with that. Now, I did have a property where one of my students, members, Tax Lien Mastermind member, she bought a property with that was secondary lien. So someone had already invested in the property and they didn't want to take it to the next step. They only wanted to get the interest. And when it went to the next step of ownership, they weren't interested in it any longer. So they sold it at a profit. They bought it for a couple $1,000 and they sold it for $7,500. So that's another way to make money on buying tax liens, where you don't want to deal with the property. You wanted the interest. You can still make a nice margin just flipping the paper itself. But anyway, how her story goes is that she got the property and actually never saw the property. It was out of state property, and it was nothing wrong with the property. It was rented immediately for $1,000 a month. She held onto the property for about 3 years, and it was valued at $70,000 at the time of ownership, of possession. And when she sold it, it was listed for $100,000. So her initial investment, she got back just, $7,500 from the rental that first year. And then the second and third year were profit, and she grew in equity on top of that. So that's an incredible story. But it's possible. We're talking about possibilities.
Exactly. I love this because it definitely seems to me like this is something you have to learn, and that's why you teach people how to do this.
Yeah.
So I totally appreciate that. Here we go.
Yeah, there we are.
there she is. But also, it seems like a lot of the things that I wouldn't necessarily want to do, like deal with, are not issues. It's kind of like forced savings in a way.
Yeah.
Versus, well, I'm just going to see about how this works out or not. And, rolling the dice. And it seems a lot safer than a lot of other options. Maybe it's not like I love the cash machine analogy where, and this has to do with somebody who was teaching how to sell on an online shop. And she goes, you're paying $67 for this course. You can't expect to put in $67 and get out 10 grand. It's going to take time to get there. You can get there, but it takes time and practice and effort and all of those things. But yeah, so it seems like it's like a solid investment versus like something that's volatile.
Yeah, well, it's been around for years and years. Even Thomas Jefferson had problems because he wasn't able to keep up with his taxes on his property. And oftentimes he was having sales to get the funds to, keep his property from foreclosure through the tax lien auction. Yeah, so they've been around, and it's something the government definitely supports. A lot of people don't know about it because for years it was in person. The auction happened at the tax collector's office or at the government office, and in the middle of the morning. So who could go? You're at work. You can't get off to take care of that. It's not something that people talk about. So it's kind of new to most people. And now, especially now with the cost of living going up, it's like, what else can I do to get more money to cover the inflation and the rising costs and the value of the dollar? For someone retiring, it's very attractive. I recently started working with a couple, just the two of them, in an evening class where they're learning to buy tax liens because they're concerned that they're going to run out of money.
Mm-hmm. It's a valid concern. I mean, what used to work doesn't, as far as how far the dollar stretches, it's definitely not the same. I mean, I spent almost $3 on a cucumber the other day.
Wow. Yeah. And eggs, $7, $5, $7, $8 for a dozen eggs. They're like almost $1 each now.
It's insane. I mean,
it's crazy.
I've got one. This one takes the cake. We bought 4 apples at the farmer's market. 4. Yeah, 4 apples. It was $13.50.
What? Wow. Right. That's crazy.
Yeah. And, never again.
Were they good? Were they delicious?
They were delicious. I will give them that. But $13.50 worth, I'm like, I don't know.
I know. It's crazy.
It's just crazy to me. But it seems to me like this is something, I like how you teach people to invest small and learn. So something that, I want to touch on when we come back from the commercial breaks. We're going to go to commercial in just a moment, but is this idea of, the going virtually to look at places. And
yes,
I think that's fascinating that we can do that now versus actually trudging over to see what it is, because what if it is in another state? Are you going to fly in and check it out? I mean,
well, people do. I was at an auction in Las Vegas, and I was surprised at how many people had flown in from California to participate in the auction. So definitely in the past, it was in-person type of thing. But since COVID or since 2020, a lot of government agencies have moved to offer it virtually. And so for fun, we actually talked about taking a cruise and going on the Mexican Riviera to Cabo San Lucas to invest while we were cruising. So now you can make it a lot of fun. You can buy when it's convenient for you, like for 2 in the afternoon or 2 in the morning. You can be online investing in a tax lien from the comfort of your home. And so it's great for a full-time worker as well as a mom with kids, single mom, single dad. Anyone now has access to invest in tax liens and tax deeds and feel comfortable doing that. Uh-oh. Julie? So I think that a lot of people aren't familiar with tax liens. And so when I learned about it, the first thing I did was I started asking my friends, have you heard of tax liens? And the answer was always no. So my first group were friends of mine that wanted to learn about tax liens. And that's how it was 6 people. And I said, I will sit down together and I'll teach you about tax lien investing. And a couple months later, I had another group. And so together there was about 15 altogether in the initial founders of Tax Lien Mastermind. And then we set up a time to go over and we caravanned to Mojave County, Arizona, and bought tax liens in person because they weren't available online at that time. This was 2019. And so we went over there and had a pharmacist in the group, a realtor, a beautician, and a server at one of the casinos in Las Vegas. It was a mixed group of people, and we had so much fun. We stopped and verified our decisions of what we wanted to purchase at the auction at the tax collector's office, and then we made the purchases, and everyone was a winner that day. Either they got the 16% interest that they had hoped for, and that was promised when you buy a tax lien. It's 16%. We didn't have to compete, so there wasn't any bid down. So it starts at 16%, for example, when you participate in the auctions in Arizona. They're typically held in February, but we were there in probably, I want to say March or April. And we drove over to, like I said, to Mojave County. And so the realtor, she bought some tax liens. All of hers redeemed. But the pharmacist that bought tax liens that day, only 1 redeemed and 2 did not. So the next step, when the person that owns a property does not pay the tax liens within the redemption period, then you can move to the next step of foreclosure. And then you get possession of the property and you can build something on there, move into the property, rent it out, or you can sell it. So in her case, she decided to sell the property for a nice profit. Another member, during the 2020 time period, there was an auction in July, and she had taken the course and become a member of Tax Lien Mastermind in, I think it was March of 2020. So in June of 2020, after learning how to do the steps for due diligence, she bought a property, or won at auction. She was a winning bidder on a property, raw land, and $2,000, which she had sitting in her savings account.
Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us now, I am Julianne Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness, and sorry for that abrupt go to commercial right in the middle of Cynthia's thoughts, but we had a technical difficulty on my end, so we had to go straight to commercial. We're just going to regroup and bring back our fabulous guest. Welcome back, Cynthia. So glad to have you back again.
Thank you. Thank you. So glad to be back.
Yeah, so we can finish after a small hiatus.
Right.
But, I was thinking since we, during the commercial break, I should say, there was a question that I would love to just ask. And, for anybody who's interested in learning what you do and how you do it and how they can do it too, and they're wondering if they're the right type of person to give it a whirl, are there certain types of people that come to, work with you, or is it just everyone?
That's a great question. That is an excellent question. It's really not for everyone. And so that's one of the things I keep my class small, because it really takes time. And so that's a really big thing. It's like, do you have the time to study and research? So I love to study. I love to read. So it's a natural thing for me to dig in. And what I encourage people to do when they're working on tax liens is just do it for an hour, maybe 90 minutes. And after that, it's like, okay, enough. But if you're having fun, it's fun because it's like exploring. You never know what you'll find when you start looking at a property. So it's not for everyone, honestly. The first thing we do is someone's interested, we have a brief conversation for 15, 20 minutes and see if it's something for them. Because if it doesn't fit their personality, it's not the end of the world. We can invest a different way, even more passively, like understand that this is a good way. You have faith in the process, but we can invest, for you, like do it for you type of thing. I don't know the acronym for that, but, but yeah,
I'm not sure either.
Yeah, so even though it's not your personality per se, you can still invest, just passively and reap the advantages of tax lien and tax deed investing that way.
I like that. So what I've heard too is a couple of different things. One is there's different ways that you can do this. Like you can actually go the whole gamut to even down to selling properties if you need to actually selling things before it gets to that level, having people do the process for you and you just put the money in and be the pretty face.
Right, exactly. Because that's another thing. Like some people are interested in the paper, not the property. So notes is a great thing. So when the property is for sale on the list and it hasn't gone to sale, but it's in jeopardy, you can help by providing the funds to take the property off the market. So then you would work out some type of arrangement where you're secure. If you just pay the taxes for someone, then the county says, thanks, bye. That's it. But you definitely want to have an agreement written and everything solidified before you put the money down. But there is a way to help the homeowner, save their home if it makes sense. And then after the sale, there's another way to make money. For example, we talked about earlier where large companies with deep pockets are in Los Angeles and investing in major cities. And you want to be a part of that too. Well, guess what? There is a way that's called overages or surplus. So remember, the county wants the unpaid taxes, but the bidders want the property and they overbid. So say, for example, like I mentioned previously, there was in San Jose, a 1-bedroom condo for sale starting at $40,000, but the property was worth $1 million. In a case like that, if the winning bid is $250,000, the county is only in need of the $40,000. The overage, the surplus, is supposed to go to the homeowner, right? So in that case, the homeowner often doesn't know because so many people don't know the ins and outs of tax liens, even when they're owed the money, that surplus money. So there are people that's their niche. They contact homeowners that have lost their property to a tax sale. And they say, hey, I believe you're entitled to some funds and I can help you get those funds for a fee. So then say, for example, if it was at $250,000, you could say, I want, as an agent on your behalf, 15%.
Mm-hmm.
So then they make money off of the overage of the surplus funds.
I love that. I love that there's a little bit of something for everybody, depending on how far down the rabbit hole you want to go.
Right, and what your personality is. So like for
Yeah.
me, I don't like the surplus because, that takes like a detective or, skip tracer, a collector, a bill collector that's saying they're not intimidated when people say, what are you calling me for? Who are you? What do you mean I have money? Where is it? Why don't you just tell me where the money is? Why are
Exactly.
you
You're a
asking me for
scammer.
15%? I don't want to have those conversations. So as
Yeah.
lucrative as surplus area can be, I don't touch it.
I like that. Something that before we went to the commercial break, I touched on a little bit too was this idea of doing this research and how, you were talking before about like pre-COVID, it was kind of like field trips and going to see properties and then also looking, now on, say, like on the computer through Zoom and all that. For somebody is that part of what you teach is what I'm asking, because like somebody like me who has no idea what I'm looking for. If there's a burned down house, then I would have an idea. But if it's not, there's nothing that's super obvious to me, then I might not know what to look for. So is that something that you teach as well?
Yeah. So the way that I go about it is it's like 6 sessions. The first 2 sessions are what are tax liens all about. What's the difference between a tax lien and a tax deed? Just like the nutshell, A to Z, whatever you want to know about tax liens in the first 2 sessions. Then the next 2 sessions are study hall, where you actually dig in and we go and look at liens. And that's where the rubber meets the road, because a lot of times when you go to a class, it's a full day class, a weekend class, and you come back with all this information, and then you're like, I don't know what to do first, so I'm just going to put that information on the shelf and I'll come back to it later. And it doesn't happen. So that's our weekend like information. And then the second, third, and the fourth session is application. You get to learn and use. So we go and we look at a list, and then we look at the maps. And so the first thing you want to do is look at the map. Where is this property? Is there an improvement on the property? Is it raw land? Is it near water? There's different questions that you need, to uncover. What is it worth? So we'll look at Zillow and some resources that'll tell us what the potential market value is versus what the asking price is, the starting bid. And then we look at what are the past, what's on the title. So we look at the county records and see, who's the homeowner? Are there other unpaid liens on there? So has this been a constant problem for them? Did someone else invest in this and abandon it? Why did they not? So say, for example, 3 years ago, an investor bought a tax lien, and then they didn't redeem it and they haven't pursued the property. It's just sitting there, and you see this other name on there besides the homeowner. You're like, that's interesting. So then you say, okay, well, maybe what's wrong here? Because maybe they found out there's a huge problem that makes it, they just walked away from their $1,000 investment, for example. So you don't want to be the next one following behind. So we do some digging around, and I always encourage the members at this point to be willing to pick up the phone. Sometimes you're not going to find the answer on the computer, and your best resource is the county. They have well-educated people that know how to read maps. They can tell you what's happening in the future. Like, a lot of counties are going through changes. I remember growing up in LA, and what I saw as a kid is a completely different LA now, 30 years later. I'll just say 30 years later. but you want to call the building, planning, zoning, what's happening, what's the future, what's the next 10 years, 15 years look like. Sometimes it's posted on the website of the county itself. So, but it's really great to call. They're happy to help. And, it kind of breaks up their day. So zoning questions, because like it might be raw land, but what is it zoned for? What's the city allow for in the future? Is it going to be housing? Is it a potentially commercial area, that industrial? Just want to get a better idea of what's going on.
I like that. I like too that, the thing that I keep coming back to, and I have to just highlight it again, is this idea that you pointed out. What's your personality?
Yeah.
Because I know, and to me, it comes back to, because I relate everything back to fitness and all of that, and like nutrition, because that's the world I came from.
Yeah.
It's like when people would come to me and say, I want to do this diet because my friend Jane did it and it worked for her. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not Jane. She doesn't eat meat and you do. So
yeah,
how well is that going to work?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And it's the same thing with this. We're talking about financial wellness, right? Mm-hmm. So you have your savings account, you have your 401k at work, you have these different things working for you, but there is some anemia in the system where it's not as robust as you would want it to be, need some supplements. And so this is a nice, vitamin T for tax liens.
I like that.
Yeah, give your finances some vitamins.
I see that as like a tagline somewhere. Vitamin T.
Yeah. Oh, I'm really creative. I'm super, super creative. So even tax liens, like we're saying, what's the personality? Anyone can invest in tax liens. It's just what way fits for you. So, to make it fun, I would do like tax lien and tequila. So we'd meet on Taco Tuesday, right? And so I'd say, okay, tax lien and tequila. And so the members came and then new people would come because they're like, tax liens, tequila, how's that go together? Just curiosity would make for a fun evening and help people become more exposed to it. But it can be dry, but it can be a lot of fun too. It's just, if you're with me, you're going to have fun with tax liens. And we'll find a way for you to prosper with tax liens based on your personality and your investing profile.
I like that. And I like too that, you mentioned start small.
Yes.
You don't have to go in really huge. Are there people that this is the way that they make their main source of income?
Absolutely. That's what's been really interesting to me, because there are some places where people aren't afforded the opportunity for the best education or just the environment, the way their town is kind of dying in a way, because people have moved away, the jobs aren't there any longer. And so I found that this has been a way for people to rally back. There's so many inspirational stories of people that have used tax liens in a down position where, they've lost everything. They're a business owner. And so they'll take their last $1,000 and buy a tax lien that will, put them $50,000 ahead. And so it sounds like gambling, but it's not. It's an investment. You've done the research, you've done your due diligence, and now you can, turn things around. And there are people after 3 years of doing this process slowly, working a job that doesn't pay enough to make ends meet, that doesn't give you the quality of time with your family. They really can use this as a full-time job.
Yeah, I like that. I think that, there's all these get rich quick schemes out there.
Yeah.
But I love that this is, for me, as methodical as I am, and I'm a researcher, and I have no problem learning new skills, sitting down and spending that time. But I don't want to waste my time on something that isn't going to fit my personality. Like if I had to call people like you're talking about and say, hey, I'll, show you this money, but you got to give me 15%. Oh my goodness. That would just be torturous hell for me. I could never do that.
Right. Yeah. No thanks. No thanks.
Yeah. But, just doing the research is kind of like, to me, it seems so much more safe than investing in things like the stock market. And, plus it would take, for me, I'm speaking in my, because it's all about me. This idea that I love real estate and I love this idea of being a part of it somehow. And if I can't necessarily, flip houses or whatever, or even if I've never done one, I've never flipped one, so I don't know if I'd even like it. But this seems like a great way to just even dip my toe in the real estate market without having to go full in. And then, like we talked earlier before, tenants and all that. Ugh.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because it's money that you already have earmarked, or you could just start a new fund and say, I'm just going to put this extra 100 in and I'm going to look for a lien along the way. And then you've got your $1,000 built up. You could buy 2 or 3 liens with that and see what happens. Because I mean, think of how much it costs to go out to dinner these days. Are you kidding?
Exactly. I mean, we were talking about my cucumber earlier. $3
Oh,
for
that's
a cucumber. $3. I mean, that's more than a small Starbucks coffee.
I know. Starbucks is out of hand. Pretty soon, those drinks are going to be, lattes are going to be $10.
It's insane. I mean, that is an extravagance at this point.
I'm becoming a barista myself. Every day I get a little bit better making that coffee at home.
So do I. Well, it's funny. After working in restaurants, I feel like I am, I learned on those machines, but yeah, I like this because I just feel like this is such a best kept secret.
Yeah, it is. But I think many times I've gone to different networking groups for real estate investors. And for example, I met a lady and she had already taken a class. It was a 3-day class. And then she invested in the after coaching. And when she went to after coaching, they encouraged her to buy from their inventory. So they still didn't coach her. And they said, well, you know what? I know how excited you are. Let's just get you into a property right away. So she bought 3 lots in Florida, 3,000 miles away, and never seen the property or anything. And then she got a bill for HOA. And so the lots were in a community where you had to pay the HOA fee as long as you're the owner. Now, when you buy a property like that, now you're responsible for the taxes, HOA, et cetera. So she was really unsure what to do, and they weren't helping her. And we just fell into a conversation. So I said, well, you can put them for sale. And she did. She's made a profit on them. But I think those were about 10,000 a piece, those lots. So you can learn, instead of paying, $5,000 for coaching, private coaching, you can just take that 5,000, 1,500 and buy and practice. So one day like the ladies that I've worked with in the past, one took $2,000, turned it into $25,000. Another took $350, turned it into $15,000. Another took $7,500 and turned it into $100,000. So if you buy right on those small ones, you can build your war chest for buying more. So if you don't even have to have 50,000 yourself or 100,000 yourself, you can have 1,000. I think 1,000 of 5,000 is a good start. And then you accumulate more money over the next, 12 to 24 months. How else would you make another 50,000 in the next 12 to 24 months? And you don't have to work for, another 20 hours a week on a part-time job or driving for Uber or any of those things.
Yeah, that seems a lot more time consuming and takes you away from home and all of that. And especially when you're just sort of exploring.
Right.
All right. Well, we do need to go to one more commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about results and also any, things to look for, things that maybe we haven't talked about yet. Since I don't know this and you're the expert, we're going to see what you think, Cynthia, when we come back in just a minute. Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us now, I'm Julianne. You are watching Own Your Wellness, and today's amazing guest, Cynthia, is back. Welcome back. So during the commercial break, I was actually drinking some green juice, even though it's like orange from the carrots. But so if you see anything on my teeth, just know that that's what it is, and I apologize in advance. But let's get back to this because I'm curious. We've talked a little bit about how you teach people, and the thing that I really want to highlight and mention again so that people really walk away with this is that not only are you teaching, but you are helping people walk through the experience so that they understand it and can do it versus here's all the information. I mean, that feels to me more like a Google situation where I might as well just be on Google and I can learn, I'm not saying that what you do is that easy, but I'm just saying I want to be able to actually utilize what it is that I've been taught.
Right. Yeah, I've been interested in real estate investing for many years. And so when I was younger and I watched my parents, lives change because of real estate, I knew that it was a secure thing. Mm-hmm. But there's two ways to go about it. There's a traditional way, like you explored, being a realtor. Mm-hmm. And that's a very traditional method, but there's a creative side. And so it's like, for me, being a painter, I love to paint in my spare time and do different crafting type things, but not a lot of time there. I really love the creativity that expands in real estate because every property is different and every property has its own problem. Like a fingerprint, it's very unique. So unraveling that problem and finding a solution that fits everyone in the scenario, that's calls for creativity. And so for a long time, there were people like Carlton Sheets and Robert Allen and some of the greats, Al Lowry. And so people were really suspicious, can this work? Can this work? And it was because they would go to these classes and they would get really pumped up and excited. And very small percentage of people actually move forward because after you're gone for a weekend in a full day class from 9-10 hours, you go back and you've got to get to work on Monday. Mm-hmm. And so then the weekend comes and you were in a class for 2 days last week. So now you've got to catch up on your honeydews from the last weekend and the honeydews that are waiting for you this weekend. And then next thing you know, the dust is on that book. And they're like, that doesn't work. I wasted my time. And it's not true. You have to, like you said, it's not a get rich quick. The stories sound like, wow, $10,000 a month or $50,000 windfall. And all these stories, they're true stories, but you didn't see the person digging around and getting rejected and going on a dead end path. When I started in real estate, it was knocking on doors. I didn't want to knock on doors. So I found someone that like to knock on doors. And so what I find, I've been working a lot with couples, husband and wife, engaged people that want to increase their different savings accounts, planning for their wedding, buying their first house, for retirement. And they're great partners because they complement each other. Someone has a skill, the other one doesn't. And so I'm working with a couple now, like what you described. She doesn't like doing the research, but she's on the phone. So he doesn't like talking on the phone. So they're perfect together. They make a great investor. So that's one way to get around it. And when I started in the business, I didn't like knocking on the doors. I was the one that was going to talk to the bank and negotiate with the bank. So my friend would knock on the door and I would wait in the car and go, oh my gosh, I don't know if I want them to say yes or not. Then I've got to go in the house. What's going to happen inside that house? But he knocked on the door and he would say, like, wave me, come on, come on. So we go and we talk to the people and they actually didn't bite. So
I like that.
But he would handle all of that part. And then when we went back, he didn't want to have anything to do with the bank. And I would just excel at that part. So together, so that's the thing. If you're not strong, you can have a partner. I had a couple, it was a mother and daughter. And the daughter was graduating from college, and she wanted her daughter to learn some, ways to invest. She was going to be a nurse, and nurses make good money. So it's a good chance for her to take some of her earnings and invest small amounts in tax liens. So it can work for any personality. If there's something missing, then you find someone to partner with that can, together you're better.
I like that. And I think too that is why you have these success stories, because people are putting in the work, they are putting in the time, the effort. And then I love how, I'm just going to say it again, you're actually walking people through the process of doing it, because otherwise, like you said, it's just one of those things that you pay for. It's like buying a course online, and it's, like, I can't even tell you how many like video courses I have that I've never even opened. I was so gung ho, and then, or I'll, watch the first one. Then all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I'll do it later. And later becomes next month, and then never, and on to the next. And so I think that, I love that you do that, because that's such a huge thing. But I want to I have to say this again for people that are watching. This is such a great way for you to be creative, like you said, and to make this money that maybe you wouldn't otherwise be able to make. I mean, for somebody like me, I drive a scooter. So for me to do Uber wouldn't even be a possibility.
Yeah, it might be kind of hard. But something, I saw a video the other day, and they were showing this lady, and they said, what is she going to do? What is she going to do? She was on a scooter, and she looked like a Walmart parking lot, and she had like 5 bags. And so she had these hooks, and so she put these hooks on her belt, and then she had these bags hanging around her waist, and she was scooting on down the road. It was so funny.
That is funny. And also, as somebody who drives a scooter, I'm like, oh my goodness, your center of balance. What happened? Like, ooh, that's scary.
Oh, I know. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
No, I don't recommend that. But yeah, so we are actually running low on time already. Can you believe it? I know, it goes by so quickly. We've got like 3 minutes left. Is there anything that maybe you haven't mentioned that you feel like people should know to decide whether or not they should give it a try, or maybe something that you wish that you'd known in the beginning? Just anything that maybe, or even reiterate something.
Yeah, the only thing I wish is I would have started sooner. So that's it. And like I said, you don't have to be a millionaire to invest in tax liens. Take a little bit of savings here and there, build up. Like I used to have this little jar, it said, for my shoe money, because I love shoes, right? But put a little jar together and say, you know what, this is my tax lien money. And after about 3 months, take that jar out and go find a tax lien. And that's the best thing. The best thing you could do is just go out there and try it. You can go to my Facebook group. It's called Tax Lien Mastermind. There's some information there that'll get you started. And then in the meantime, save your money. And in no time at all, you'll be transformed into a tax lien investor.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I just can't say, I'm like super excited.
We're going to have to turn you into
I know. I'm like, let me talk to my husband, because I think the two of us together would make an amazing team. So.
Another couple in the group. Come on, join me.
Exactly. Plus we're local. So
yes, we're neighbors.
Yeah, exactly.
LA County, Orange County.
Exactly. On that note, that is all the time that we have for today. So make sure that you reach out to Cynthia, everyone. And Cynthia, thank you so much for sharing your time and your knowledge.
My pleasure.
Oh, it's been so much fun. And everyone, until next Thursday, we will see you again very soon. Enjoy the rest of your week.